Fantastic, and we are recording. So welcome, folks. Welcome to the Extraordinary Experts interview series, and we have another expert with us today. I'm really pleased to have this gentleman with us. We started communicating just a few weeks ago, and I've been aware of his training for a little while. He's doing some really great stuff working with Parkinson's population and other populations as well in the Northern Cal area, near the Bay Area, right? Generally speaking, Daniel?
Yes.
Yeah, so you are a Rocksteady coach, you're a master personal trainer, you're a senior fitness coach, you have three Rocksteady affiliate, you are an affiliate with three Rocksteady locations, which is fantastic. And so for those who are watching and listening, I'm pleased to introduce my special guest, Mr. Daniel Burkhardt. Thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to this for quite some time since we've been talking the last few weeks. But yeah, it's just great. It's great to be on, and we've definitely done some adapting with the last 6 months, 7 months being in COVID. So it's been interesting, but it's been fun.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, that was the other question I wanted to ask that I forgot to write down. So we'll get to that, though. I'd like to get to that. I think that'll naturally just come up. Well, that's cool. So, I really enjoy anytime I've been teaching, especially around the United States or parts of Canada, a little bit in Europe. In certain areas, but especially the States, I've had a lot of Rocksteady coaches come to my workshops. And I love it because they add so much to fill out another dimension that is highly beneficial for everyone, everyone who's learning. And we mix it up with, people with Parkinson's, caregivers, people with other movement disorders, OTs, PTs, everyone. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you is because you've been doing this for a while now. You have three locations. So I'm just curious, what got you interested in working with the Parkinson's population?
Sure. So really what it really started was, which a lot of Rocksteadies is the 60 Minutes news segment Leslie Stahl did back in 2015. Her husband was participating in a Rocksteady, and headquarters went from 72 affiliates being in business 10 years, and then after that interview we have over 900 affiliates worldwide.
Okay.
And so what got it going for me was I have a background in a whole bunch of martial arts, and my dad recorded the news segment. He said, I think this would be right up your alley. And so I watched it, and I was really intrigued, and I looked up the closest Rocksteady, and it was in San Francisco at the time, which, like I said, it's about 45 minutes from where I live in Concord. And so I reached out to the owner, Kim Woolley. We're still good friends to this day. We stay in touch. Kim Woolley and Freddie Silva, that's how we all met. He's the one that runs three affiliates in the San Jose, Silicon Valley area. Okay. I actually volunteered with him for a year underneath him in his class. I would just drive out every Sunday for a year just to see if it worked. I was kind of a skeptic myself. Let's see if this works. And there was a new fighter that joined the same day I started volunteering. And so I just kept my eye on him for about a month. And within that month, I saw his confidence improving. I saw his balance improving. And I was like, okay, now I can stand behind this product. And then from there, it was just my mission. How can I get this to the East Bay? And so then after that first year, it was, I got Kim's blessing. Yeah, we're not going to go to the East Bay. Please do. And so I said, okay. That's another thing for me is making sure I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. I want to do it properly. I don't want to upset anyone in the community. Yeah. And so once Kim gave me the okay, it was like, all right. So then it was hunting down a good gym that would fit the needs for my fighters, good relationship with, gym owner. I sublet from a lot of locations. And so that's what I did. And so since then it was, December of 2016, I started one affiliate with two partners, which was great. It got pretty big in the first 6 months, and then it was opening Albany location, And then I kind of split from my first location. We just had different mindsets with business and everything, and it just wasn't a good fit then. But they had a great program. We started that program, went well. I just decided I need to split for just, more of integrity reasons.
Sure.
And so then it was from there, it was running, my focus went to the Albany Rocksteady. I'm also partnered up with PD Active, which is a nonprofit based out of Berkeley. That really, I have their little trifold here, which is a little bit hard to read, but I like their saying. It says, by and for people affected by Parkinson's disease in the East Bay. And really their goal is to keep the East Bay Parkinson's community moving and informed. So that's been a big blessing. They help me out when I'm trying to grow the program. They would give me some seed money so that I could help me out with the rent so that I could keep adding classes. So they've really had my back since I took over the Albany location. And then since then it was the Mount Diablo support group, which is located more on the 680 corridor in Walnut Creek all the way out to Pleasanton, which is about a 20-minute drive with their 2 locations. They were reaching out to me. They had came to a PD Active mini fair. Every year we do a mini fair. All of our programs, there's about 14 programs for people with Parkinson's disease in PD Active. And so we do a mini fair just to let the community know this is what's out there, this is what's available. Boxing, dancing, yoga, voice projection classes. And so one of their board members, their vice president, approached me about a year and a half ago and said, we need this out, in the East Bay, closer to, Danville, San Ramon area. And I said, okay, once I get, a certain amount of fighters committed, I'll start one. And so then they had the commitment. I got the Danville Rocksteady boxing going about a year ago. It's coming up on a year, and that's been really awesome. And then right before COVID, I started my Hercules Rocksteady location, which is about 15 minutes from Berkeley area. And I have a great coach there. She's the owner there as well as a coach, Coach Kim, and she's out of the Bar Athletics. And they're still doing a great program. We're still trying to grow that location. When COVID hit, it kind of got put on pause, but Coach Kim and I still run online classes 6 days a week for the Rocksteady community.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, while we're talking about that, again, that was the question I totally forgot that I wanted to ask you after I sent you questions, right? Sure. And now for anybody watching, sorry, I'm a little bit dark in the image here. Light sensitive right now after my eye surgery last week, which you can probably tell it's off, but man, the vision's amazing, so I'm lucky. But so tell me, I'll tell you a story real quick first, although this interview is about you but not me. But I will share it anyways. So I was working at the university here at Syracuse just since last August until COVID, right, when they shut down everything, campus, and classes went online, gym shut down, and they recruited me back. I had worked there for a couple of years ago, because I decided to stop traveling, and so I went back and working there. I had my own business outside of there. But never until COVID had I ever done an online session, personal or otherwise. And I had thought about it, because I actually know some trainers who are doing a great business online for many years. I never did it. And what has your experience been with that? I found that for me, being forced into it was actually a really good thing. And it's not that hard. This is not rocket science. But it actually allowed me to keep working too and helping people, for those who were willing to jump on Zoom or something. And many were. How did it affect your business? How did you handle it? Had you done it before? What's this experience been like for you doing the online thing?
Sure. So, one word that's always given me peace over the last few years is adapting. And so adapting is really what that's my mindset when something like COVID hits. I had not done any online training before March. And it was just, what can I do to keep my fighters moving? That was my priority. And so I actually was living in another location. I had a 1-car garage on an iPhone was how I started. Just had a mount holding my iPhone. I put up 3 of my Rocksteady shirts as my background and had a little bench and just a couple free weights, some cones, and my boxing gloves. And I
That's
was like,
cool.
let's just figure it out. I had a Bluetooth speaker for the music. In that setup, I can never get the music and sound quality correct. And
Exactly.
so I had to I turned it into a game. How can I make this as professional as possible? That's always been my mantra with the fitness industry was there's a lot of passion in fitness and health, but I always felt like there's been a little bit of lacking on the business side of it. So that was kind of my goals. How can I make this more professional? And so that's what I did the last few months is, well, my background. I need my background to be more professional. I need to have some bags up. Another reason why was to motivate my fighters. If you could just pick one bag that I put up and put it at your house, that'll help you. A double end bag, a speed bag. I mean, I know the heavy bags, more of a commitment, takes up a little bit more room. But that's another thing I do is I always look online, find different things that fighters can use at home. And so part of it was a big thing was morale booster. I want the background to be inviting. The ground is blue. Blue is calming for the ground. Also for safety, I was on little quarter-inch thick rubber mats, and they would slide around on me when I'm teaching class. And so this mat's great. It's a 5x10 Dolomar mat, and it doesn't move around. It's 1 inch and a quarter thick.
Oh,
So
nice.
that helps too, because it's like I'm teaching 5 days a week. So, another thing is just making sure I'm okay recovery wise, impact wise.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, it's been a little journey. I run through. You can see in the background, I've got a TV mounted on the wall, so I can
Yeah,
see all the fighters during class to make
that's cool.
corrections of posture, range of motion, and then I finally figured out the sound. I run it. I hardwired the Ethernet cord into my garage, so there's no issue with reception anymore with Wi-Fi issues. That was another hurdle I had to get over. And then I run the sound system through a receiver from an iPad. And so now I finally got that sweet spot of I can run music and they can hear me talking the whole time, giving instruction. So that
Oh,
was like a big accomplishment that took months to figure out.
that's good to know, actually, because that's something I'm struggling with too a little bit during webinars when we have music as a portion of it, and as the workshops I do online now. Might have to call you up, brother, and get some
Yeah.
Ethernet cord lessons. So,
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing out here. Comcast, they won't let residential have two routers, and I thought that was crazy.
yeah.
And so originally, just out of the essence of time, I actually had two routers from Comcast. But then within a month, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to be spending an extra $100 a month on internet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
my brother and I just ran the Ethernet cord from the opposite side of my house to the garage, and, and that saves figure $1,200 or 1,200 a year on
Yeah,
internet.
sure. So it's coming right out of the router and goes into is it the iPad?
No, so I've got it split. I've got a box that splits off, one for my computer and then one for my Apple TV, so that there's no connection
Ah,
issue.
okay,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, that's great. Great idea. Yeah. Okay, that's something I need to do. Thank you for that advice.
absolutely. And then I run it on a tripod. It was actually an easel, but it goes 6 feet tall, so that
Oh,
was the benefit. So now you can see height and everything. When I'm standing, you're seeing my whole body. That was another thing was making sure my fighters could see my feet so that they see how I'm rotating my
yeah,
ankles and my movement.
exactly. Yeah, all
Yeah.
that stuff is so important. A lot of people, like myself, actually, were very visual. If I see stuff, I'll remember, and I need to see it. So tell me, let's go back just a little bit. So when you started volunteering, about when? Like how many years ago? And then when did you become an affiliate?
2015, I started volunteering. It
Hmm.
was about November of 2015, and then December of 2016, I was on the waiting list and I got certified as the Rocksteady coach. Flew out to back then. The only way you could do it was fly to Indiana, do a 3 day certification course. Now they're offering a couple locations. My friend Freddie Silva is one of the training facilities for new coaches. So a year about gosh, it's probably been almost 2 years. I went down there and helped him certify the new coaches from all over the world. Japan
Oh,
is
cool.
one that stood out to me. And then there's now we just did a dry run with headquarters last week on a new certification for getting some online courses going to help keep getting people certified. So I
Good.
was one of the coaches that kind of observed and gave some input. So I was really honored that I was able to do that. I love having FaceTime with the head coaches, Christy Rose Fomer, and then Christine Timberlake. And so it's just always good. I always say, I tell them at the end, last Friday, it's good to see my fight family at headquarters, because it's so important for us to stay connected. We do a Coach Connect. It's about every Wednesday or bi-weekly. And so that's really important too, as coaches, we need to be checking in with each other too.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That teamwork's really important in so many ways, right? You can share ideas, you can learn. So I know that Rocksteady is primarily originally, well, actually, isn't the founder of it somebody who lives with Parkinson's?
Yeah, Scott Newman. He was the original creator of it, the founder, and he was a DA for Indiana, and he couldn't write his name anymore, and as a lawyer, that was a concern and issues. So his buddy, that was a Golden Gloves boxer, just to help him deal with the depression and taking on this disease at 41, he's like, why don't you just box with me? And then from there, you saw improving his name again. And so it was just, there was no doubt. I met him in Arizona at our last coach conference, and he just knew right away. There was no doubt. This is what we need to do. He reached out, found Christy Rose Fulmer, who was a retired professional boxer, and said, I want you to be the face of this program. I want you to be their head coach. And so I just thought it was so cool that when I met him, he was so solid, there was no doubt. He's like, this works, I know it, let's just get after it. And so that was really motivating.
I tell you, most of my research all year this year since COVID has been, actually all of it, solely on the brain and the neurochemicals like dopamine, how to create dopamine, different ways of creating it, serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin, whatever. Dopamine being the main one, because we know that in Parkinson's, that is the primary neurotransmitter that's diminished in its production, and it causes a lot of problems because of the substantia nigra being a dying part of the brain in Parkinson's. But I'm going to go back, and I just hear me out here, everybody who is watching or listening, because years ago I was skeptical of Rocksteady. I was skeptical of other programs I saw. Not that they didn't work, but that maybe it wasn't enough. And you know what I think? I think I was totally wrong, and it's way enough. As a matter of fact, the fact that you get, and I'm going to tie this in, though, with the research on the brain. The fact that people go to Rocksteady because it is a go-to. It is, in fact, it's the number one go-to, period. Globally. That is the number one. Oh, there's a Rocksteady program? Oh, great. Well, we're going to go. Everybody tries that, or they go to it first if they're going to do anything, or 90% of the time, Now, there's a reason for it. There are a lot of reasons for it. But the fact that people get up, they get moving, that in and of itself is huge. That is like the biggest hurdle for so many people, is to actually get moving. Because with lack of dopamine, you want to be a couch potato. That's just a fact. Dopamine is I'm sure you know, it's a driver. It's a reward thing. But it's also very much a driver. There's a neuroscientist near you, and not far from you in Stanford, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who will be on in January to talk. His research in creating dopamine is just mind-boggling. And actually it has really taken me back to realizing that just getting off the couch and actually taking a step, literally taking a step forward, is the first step.
Yes.
I mean, but it's not, it's more than just the first step. It's the first step of taking a step. It's first step psychologically, emotionally. It's also a first step of leaning into movement, leaning into the psychology of getting up, getting out the door, getting in your door, and getting going. Yeah. And I'm sure from what I've seen in the Rocksteady, the coaches who come to where I've been and teaching and things, I always pick on in a good way. I say, please show us stuff, because we're all here to learn from each other. And what I love is you can get really creative with what you do. You can gamify it. You can make it a challenge. You can make it a goal. And that whole dopamine, that's driving people to achieve the goal, whether it's, a certain memory pattern of, you're doing hooks and this, or 2 lefts and a right, or whatever. This gamifies, it creates a great environment for people. It makes it fun. They get to socialize. They get their heart rate up. They get to start creating a little BDNF in the brain, which helps to slow disease progression, slow dying brain cells, death of dying brain cells, and they feel better when they're done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm putting words now. I'm expecting you to answer it because I know you're going to say yes.
Yeah.
They feel better because when you get moving, all these chemicals and neurochemicals and hormones start going, and it's like, this is, even for me who, have been clinically depressed in my life, movement is the creator of the drugs in my human pharmacy known as the brain that gets me over the depression hump.
Yes. And that's another thing with Parkinson's. Depression, anxiety are hand in hand.
Yes.
And so that's a big part is I do all my assessments. We were talking about this last week with all the coaches. I find value in that. I want to meet every single person that enters the door. I want to build that one-on-one right away because I know just to get in that door, there's a lot of anxiety. Most people, I'd say now 90% have never boxed in their life. And so,
sure.
And some people have even told me, I've had some of my lady fighters say, I used to think boxing was barbaric. I wanted nothing to do with it my whole life. And now I love it. So it's like that's kind of a cool thing about it is you're getting people that never had wanted anything to do with the sport, but now see the benefits for health, and the camaraderie is really key. You talk about coming into the gym, and that's really what it is the camaraderie where everyone in the room is dealing with the same disease. And so that's important too. Because I've had fighters say, like, if there was a spouse that started to participate a little bit, they're like, this is kind of our club. Like, we want to protect our club. And so I'm very sensitive to that because everyone works so much harder together. And that's really what was my challenge in the beginning with doing the Zoom is I need to keep the social aspect in here. Mm-hmm. And so I've never, at the beginning of class, it's pretty standard with Rock Steady to do a get-to-know-you question. I never took that out. I've talked to some Rock Steady coaches that were like, we took it out for time. And I'm like, no, that's a very important element. I always tell people, don't take it out. I don't care if it takes 10 minutes or 20 minutes to get through 20 fighters answering a question. It's too valuable. We need that aspect. Another thing was I used to mute up my mics in class so that they wouldn't bounce around to other people's screens so they'd always see me. And then I realized, no, we need to be able to hear each other. I need us to be working on voice projection throughout the class. So now I keep all the mics open, and it's not an issue. So that's because of the aspect of socializing and making sure we're staying engaged. Even if we are in our office at our house, we're still engaging with each other.
I love that, man. And, going back and reviewing a couple things there, the fact that you're doing the one-on-one, get to know them, that's like paramount, man. Because people want to know that you care and you have compassion, and obviously you do, and they'll feel that. And when they feel that, it's a huge difference. You're not a coach walking around with a chip on your shoulder. You're a person who cares about helping people. And we talked on the phone here a week or two ago, and I could hear that in your voice too. I just knew. I said, okay, this guy's doing the real stuff, man. And that's the other thing that's really, I think, for me, rewarding. And I want to ask you, my next question actually has to do with some of your most rewarding experience. But I'll tell you, one of the things I love about a group setting, and Rock Steady, it's a perfect setting for it, is people with Parkinson's, a lot of times, they get into this mindset where they're self-conscious and they don't want to leave the house as much because they're afraid, they might trip and fall, or, that maybe a tremors make it hard for them to eat or drink, so they might spill something and make a mess, and they don't want that attention or that embarrassment. And so Rock Steady brings them in. They have something in common, like you said, and they get to socialize now, whether it's on Zoom, which is better than nothing.
Yep.
It's a great substitute, or in person. This socialization, I mean, I don't know if I could say it's a lifesaver, but I think it is a quality of lifesaver a lot of times, so that people are, definitely a quality of lifesaver for many people. What are some of your most rewarding experiences? Do you have a couple
Oh
you'd
yeah,
want to share? Because you've been doing this long enough, man. I'm sure you've seen some really cool stuff happen.
yeah. That's the really just the being of service is such a gift. You can't pay for that. Hearing getting the feedback from what Parkinson started to take away from a fighter, and then what they've gained back since being in the program. One thing I wanted to speak to that you were talking about going out and feeling uncomfortable is that was one thing I did was I would go to the pediatric picnics and just listen. Yeah, I would tell people about the program, but I wanted to just sit and see what their side is like. And I remember sitting at a picnic for pediatric, and there was a guy talking to another person with Parkinson's saying, I was on BART and I'm shaking and people think I'm drunk, and I'm not drunk. I have Parkinson's. So like that's a good example of that's exactly what some people feel like. So when they get to come together, everyone's got the same, disease that they're fighting. They can relax and just feel comfortable around their environment, around who they're with. Let their guard down. And so that really stood out to me, and that was 4 years ago that I heard that. Rewarding stories that I've really enjoyed. One of my fighters at the Albany location, she came in and she told me I couldn't cut the pie for Thanksgiving last year. And this year she could do everything. She said I couldn't cut a pie, I couldn't get out of bed on my own. And so that really stood out to me. Next year I cut the turkey. I did everything. I can get out of the bed on my own. Her husband approached me at a pediatric function just on his own and said, hey, this really made our relationship better that since she started the boxing. And like that to me, it's like that's the blessing, is it trickles down. It's not just the fighter, the whole family it gets benefits from it. And so, and then another fighter or a couple, or it's things they stopped doing that they enjoyed. I mean, that's kind of a big thing when I do an assessment. Well, what did you like to do activity wise? Shoot basketball hoops, or play basketball, play tennis, golf, etc. And so that was the things that stood out to me as a fighter. Hadn't played tennis in years. Started doing rock steady a few months later. Hey, I'm playing tennis again. And it's like, that's awesome. So now he's moving more. And then another fighter said, I quit traveling 3 years ago. And then since then, he's told me, hey, I just went to Central Park in New York. I walked around it. I would have never done that if I didn't do the boxing program. Or same guy said, I went to San Francisco. I walked 3 miles with my wife. I could never do that before. And so it's like that right there. That's the positivity that you just can't pay for, and it's just such a blessing to hear.
Well, I'm sure you've seen this. One of my favorite things is when I see somebody who, let's say, they regain or improve at maybe what would normally be considered a simple task or movement or ability that they had diminished in quality a lot or lost altogether. And something as simple as rolling over simple doesn't always mean easy. But we teach rolling patterns and we teach a lot of different things, but more than just regaining the ability to do whatever comes the psychology and the mindset and the emotional change by realizing the ability to do this thing again. And that mindset change, I think, is probably infinitely more, weighs more and has more influence on their quality of life than the actual regaining the movement does. Because, so many times you'll see somebody who's depressed and hopeless, and then they all of a sudden something works and they can do it again, and now they're unstoppable. They're optimistic. And of course, like you said, there's a trickle down. The ripple effect goes out to caregivers, spouses, family, friends, co-workers, others in your class probably. It's just, to me, that is probably the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because now they've had a change of heart, change of mind, and they're unstoppable. And there's research that shows, not to ramble on and on, but if you look at Stanford again in the Huberman lab, if you even take the example of 2 mice in a tube, and if one mouse who might be weaker gets pushed and helped by maybe your finger in the tube or something in the tube that pushes the back end to push the other mouse out of the tube. There's a part of the brain, and we have it as humans too, that it becomes the winner in you. It activates like a winning circuitry, and you actually think you're a winner now, and that makes you win without assistance later. So I know in a way it's not the same as when you're doing it on your own, but then again, the assistants you're assisting, you're coaching, there's assistants coming here, they're realizing benefits, and boom, now they're out on their own cutting the turkey, walking 3 miles, walking Central Park. You didn't have to be there because you played your role and you continue to play your role. That's so freaking huge.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a blessing, my dad always said, do something you're passionate about. And so for a while I was pursuing law enforcement. I went through the Contra Costa Sheriff's Academy. And one thing I liked about that element was they instilled never be a victim. And so that's what I like to take into this program is we're not victims. We're just adapting and dealing with what life's dealt. And then we're going to find the best way to make this the best quality of life possible. And so that was a blessing of going through that, was getting that mindset and then just taking it with me to rock steady. And I look forward to work. I it sounds cheesy, but that's what I always craved. You watch all these motivational videos on YouTube. Don't waste your time if you're not doing something you're passionate about. Go figure that out. And so that's what it was for me, was I have to do something I'm passionate about. That's just who I am. And it's like with all the martial arts background, I don't want that to get wasted. I want to be able to share that with people because it was shared with me. And so that's how I look at it. Is you just got to give back. I was fortunate to have really good trainers. I had a fighter ask me the other day in class, "Oh, do you got a lot of head injuries?" And they go, "No," because I was fortunate that I worked with older people. Everyone was over, well, not everyone, but my main trainer was 50 when we started, about 52. Took me all over the Bay Area, guided me through the martial arts that I wouldn't have found on my own at my early 20s. So it's having mentors also. No one's successful on their own, I don't think. And so I've always had lots of mentors, and that's been a big blessing too. My main trainer, Pete, he doesn't want any recognition, and it's just, he's like that true martial arts. Like, I just want to stay in the background. I don't need any glory. And so to have a mentor like that was huge. And then my main lineage that would be his senior instructor was, we refer to him as Manoy out of respect, meaning older brother. But why I gravitated towards him out of all, I did about 10 different martial arts, internal, external, and percussive styles. So Tai Chi, Bagua, Penjak Silat, Kali, which is Filipino, played with Wing Chun. So I've got a really diverse background with martial arts because of them. But what it helped me decipher someone that really has the ability or someone that's just kind of trying to string you along to keep your money coming in. And so having that was such a blessing. Felix Pasqua, who's Manoy, his lineage is Pangamot, which is the martial art. He's based out of the Philippines. Why I gravitated towards him was he was very high skilled, but he could teach to any level, which is hard to do when someone's high skilled, and he was humble. And that's the difference. The character and integrity, that was the difference. I've seen it both sides of martial arts. And so I was thankful to have those mentors to help guide me. And so now I don't have head injuries throughout that training, which is huge. I've met a lot of UFC fighters that have a lot of serious injuries, and they're the same age as me. I'm 35. And it's tough to see because they're very talented. It's just they didn't get the chance to have maybe the same mentors as me. So and I'm aware of that. So it's not that I was smarter than anyone. I just got fortunate that I had people in my life to really look out for me.
That's awesome, man. I agree with you. You're not going to be successful by yourself. I certainly wouldn't have gotten nowhere if I didn't have some great help, instructors, professors, mentors.
And that's one thing I would like to add is I actually have a couple fighters in my program in Albany that really helped me on the back end. And again, I wouldn't be as the standard I'm at right now without their help. And so that's another aspect is even when Zoom started, I made it known to them. I'm like, you guys I've always, as a coach, I have your back, but right now you really have my back. You're giving this online Zoom a chance. I've got people from late 40s to 90 on Zoom, and
That's
so
cool,
that's a
man.
big hurdle, and so I make it known. Thank you for giving this a chance. So it's just been a big blessing.
That is cool. One of the things that I'm famous for doing is not tying things together, and I just realized something I may not have tied together. When I'm talking about the mice in the tube, where one is pushing the other out, there is a part of the brain that is activated when you win something, even if you win with assistance. And that activation of that part of the brain is present in humans. And I'm trying to remember the name of the part. I know it doesn't really matter. It starts with an H, not the hippocampus, but it's something. The bottom line is that this this is something I'm kind of looking into right now. I'm just curious as I go back for more education and a graduate program. I'm looking at this. How much do things weigh? And it's not that it really matters, but I'd like to see, and I hope that the research shows that the not that the activation of that brain, which causes the belief in your possibilities of doing things, so your belief in yourself, I hope it weighs 1,000 times more than the actual regaining of the ability. It's because the mouse that lost, or that won, will continue to win most of the time in pushing another mouse out, but he did it with assistance, or she did it with assistance. Well, it can change the brain. And you know what? I mean, I haven't really thought about it. I suppose that could be used in a bad way, but we're using things in good ways to help people. And it's just an area that I'm going a little off track too. Another thing that I'm famous for is my
No,
tangents.
I think it's great. I agree.
But, does it matter that it weighs more? Maybe not, but it matters in quality of life change for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when
Yeah.
somebody realizes something like that, and another person sees them go through this who's also fighting, that is, or I should say, it can be very inspiring. I think I've seen more inspiration come out of that than anything.
I do say that when when a new fighter comes in the gym to observe a class, I tell people I don't sell the program, my fighters do. They literally will corral, get like 5 fighters around this new fighter or that's observing, and they're like, "This is how it's helped me," and so they're getting it reaffirmed through their experience, and so that's awesome to see too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's move forward a little bit here. I'm curious as we talk about your business you've had now for a few years, and the locations you're at. You've seen a lot of people. You worked with a lot of fighters. What advice would you give to a person who lives with PD, and what advice would you give to a caregiver or spouse of that person?
All right, so a person with PD, I've dealt with this a few times. I've had fighters that just do a lot of different things, and they, push back on pricing or push back on scheduling of the classes. And so I always take things back to the basics because I think there's a lot of value in the basics. So, end of the day, what's going to help slow the progression of Parkinson's disease? Forced intense exercise. So if I've got a fighter that says, the boxing just isn't a good fit for me, I say, okay, but whatever you do it with forced intense exercise. If it's riding a bicycle, do some interval training, really get the heart rate up and down. And so that's the advice I give to people that maybe the program just doesn't fit for them. Caregivers, family members. What I'd say is you got to take care of yourself. I've seen family members take care of other family members, and it just drains the person helping out. So you have to be doing your mental health as well as your fitness. So that's another thing. It's like, the whole thing of putting your mask on before putting another person's mask on or helping. Same thing. If you're in a good place mentally and physically, you will be a better caregiver. If you're not, you're just going to be causing problems, really. And that's what I don't want. I want caregivers to be going to support groups. Again, they need that camaraderie with other caregivers. and then also staying physically fit too. Because again, if you throw your back out, how are you going to help someone that needs your help? So you got to just take care of yourself, and it's not a bad thing. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have this being of service where they don't think they need to take care of themselves, and that's always something that no, you need to take a step back, take care of yourself, so that you can
Yeah.
be a better giver.
Seems like there's so many people who get into for various reasons, um, different reasons, like either they feel obligated to help the other person first and not themselves, which is a very unselfish thing. Yet, I need to take care of myself so I can be better for others who I work with and my family. And I have a granddaughter coming any minute. I'll be a grandpa, so she's doing Halloween, but any day now, man, any day. So I mean, I want to be in good shape for my family, my friends, my people I work with, and caregivers. I tell you, man, they they don't get enough recognition. Generally speaking, I mean, you do, I do, but by and large, they're kind of a distant second to the person who needs the help, or with the let's say with Parkinson's. Let's use that for an example. And man, I don't know how they do it sometimes, but bringing them in, that's great advice. It's great advice to have them, take care of themselves. They need to take care of themselves. It's very, very important. It's one of the most important things they can do for the person they're with.
Oh yeah, I mean the halt saying. I'm sure you've heard it: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It's like if you're any of those things, you better take a step back and figure out which one, and then address it,
Yeah,
because that happens daily. If you forget to eat lunch, if you have too much of a fast, it affects you.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So how about if we take this over now to trainers, coaches who work with, let's say, people with Parkinson's or anybody. In fact, I did want to ask you one other question, so I'll go back to that right now. But let's tie it in, though. Let's tie it in with this last question I have before the other last question, which is where can people find you? We'll get to that in a minute.
Right.
Do you use this training for anyone who doesn't live with Parkinson's? And do you have any advice for coaches and trainers out there at all? Any kind of advice at all?
Sure. So I'll address the first part. I've ran people like the caregivers, for instance. I had a group of about 14 that wanted to try it out themselves, and so we did. I ran them through the class just like I would with the Rocksteady fighters, and they were exhausted because I set it up in the gym as a circuits. So you're going to 10 different stations, hitting heavy bags, double in, speed bag. I've got cones set up. You're doing side steps, back pedaling, high knees, sit to stands in a chair, hitting. I make a point every class. All our coaches do focus mints because when I started volunteering in San Francisco, I could just see the people just lit up when they were doing focus mints. It's just
Yes.
boom, it's just a different energy. So we always do focus mints in class. But yeah, and I would have continued doing that, but that was when I got approached about starting the Danville Rocksteady by the Mount Diablo support group. So I had to put that on pause. So eventually I will get back to non-Parkinson's, but really the focus has been Parkinson's specifically. When it comes to advice for coaches or trainers is really what I like to do with all my new coaches is just have you volunteer a few classes, shadow me, and because a couple reasons. One is I need you to build up a rapport with the fighters so they're more comfortable with you, because a lot of people with Parkinson's, from my experience, they're a little off-put by new people because they're not as trusting. And the other reason why I want you to volunteer is because to see if it's a right fit for you. It's hard to recruit coaches for this program because I need someone that's knowledgeable with boxing as well as Parkinson's. I get all my coaches certified. I pay for the certification through headquarters. But then also, you got to be a patient person. That's a big part of that. Not every day is different for someone with Parkinson's disease. So someone might be freezing more one day than they were 2 classes ago. And so that's another thing you got to be aware of. So for coaches and trainers, it's patience is huge. Making sure that you're confident in your abilities, because people can tell if you're not. And that would be some of the advice I would have. I've turned down people that have came to me wanting to coach. I could tell they weren't the right fit. Their energy might be different. Or another thing I don't like is drill sergeants. You can't be a drill sergeant to these fighters. A lot of them have already been in the military, and they've said this directly to me. I've already been in the military. I don't need to go back. So whenever I had a coach that was like a drill sergeant, I'd have to nip that in the bud right away, because that's not the environment I need.
Right. Yeah, good advice. Great advice. I've really enjoyed this, man. I'm glad we were able to connect today.
Yeah.
I love the work you're doing. It's people like you who are really out there making a difference. You're helping people to change the quality of their life. I appreciate that. They appreciate that. How can people find you? If they want to know more, where do they go?
Yeah, so I am on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's Rocksteady Boxing Albany, CA. I know there's confusion from New York, but it's in California. And then my website is Rocksteady Boxing GBA, and that's for Greater Bay Area. So again, it's rocksteadyboxinggba.com.
Cool.
You could go on the website and you could contact me through email there. But I've really enjoyed this conversation too, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this podcast. I really think podcasts are such a great outlet for spreading knowledge and information and getting just to interact with each other. I mean, I look forward to this. It's like I'm up extra early to come sit in my garage and do an interview, but that's the reality of where we're at. And I think that's a trip. It's like last week I'm sitting in here at 5:30 in the morning so that I could do the coach conference deal or the coach meeting that starts at 8:30 in Indianapolis. And it's like I wouldn't be up at 4:30 if I really didn't love doing this. And so
I hear you, man.
Yeah, it's just been.
I hear you. Well, I started doing interviews, I don't know, 6.5 years ago, partially because it was, mostly self-indulgent. I just wanted to learn more. And you know what? It's actually led to a ton of opportunities and a ton of different things. But more than anything, is led to two primary things, which is I meet great new people.
Yeah.
And I have friends. So I'm sure we're going to be talking in the future. In fact, when I say goodbye to everybody here, I want you to hang on with me because I have something I want to ask you. But it's also I've learned so much, and got to keep doing this kind of thing because I want to spread the word of what people like you are doing to try to get it out there. Hopefully, drive business your way. Maybe if they're not in your area, at least they'll be inspired to do something in their own area, right?
That's what I would also like to say is I'm online Zoom right now, so you could be coming to my classes all over the world. I try to make that clear. I'm in lots of support groups and on Facebook, and it's like you could do this class if you're in Colorado. So it's just that's another reality is hey, if you want to try out my program, email me. I'll give you the link, and you can see what it's like.
I know I have clients I work with out of the country one-on-one, and I don't know why I'm still not in the mindset of even promoting outside my area.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad you said that. So yes, people watching, people listening, because this goes to a bunch of different platforms besides YouTube. Go to rocksteadyboxinggba.com, right? Greater Bay Area. Check it out. And it doesn't matter where you are, you can still jump in and join Daniel. Well, cool, man. Hey, hang on with me when I sign off. Any final words? Anything you want to say before we sign off, my friend?
Just thank you so much for the opportunity. I love having these conversations, and I just find so much value. So just thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it very much. I'm inspired, and gosh, I got to tell you, sometimes I think I need to call up Rocksteady and inquire about a franchise or a license or whatever, because there's a lot. I think I would have a lot of fun with that.
It's a lot of fun, really.
And I'm not really traveling anymore, but despite COVID, I still wasn't traveling.
Well, it's a lot more than people think because you got the back end, just like any other business.
Oh, sure, yeah, business.
You still got to do that end. Yep. Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, thanks again for all you're doing, and thanks everybody who's watching and listening. Just get out there, The thing is, I always try to give a little advice at the end here. I am as guilty of the next person as not wanting to get up and move. This is every day for me, okay? Now, this isn't about me, but I'm just going to tell you that if you don't feel like getting up and moving, you're not alone. You're in my club. You're in the Carl who doesn't want to move club. But that's so many of us, because we can do so many things sitting down now or laying down. We can do things on our phone. I barely get on my laptop half the time, you know? I can do stuff on the phone, but you know what? Got to get up, got to put one foot in front of the other. I've got to get moving, because when you get started, you get the energy to keep going. And there's a whole thing about that, about the brain and the circuitry that happens and the neurochemicals that happen and the neuroplasticity that occurs that keeps you moving once you get started moving. So it really goes back to the 3 words I love to say, and now I know more why I say it and the scientific stuff behind it, which is another conversation, but just get started. Just get started. Just keep moving, because you will get the energy to keep moving. Go see Daniel. Get on Zoom. Join one of his classes. Just do it. Oh, that's Nike. Just do it. So just get started, man. Okay. Thanks again, my friend, and thanks everybody again. Remember, get started, get moving, stay healthy. Have a great day.